So, chatter behind the curtain is that Kendrick Lamar is about to hit the ropes, throw the first punch, and knock the entire music industry flat on its back. And reportedly, the bell for round one is closer than anybody wants to admit. Sources tapped into the pgLang inner circle are whispering that he has been quietly finishing a full-blown boxing-themed album. And honey, if that turns out to be real, half the internet is about to spontaneously combust before the first single even drops. Peep this. This isn't some random hot take from a nobody with a burner account. The buzz is pointing to hand wraps, hidden Grammy symbolism, a DJ Dahi feature that leaked out of nowhere, and a Terence Crawford connection that the man himself planted months ago in plain sight. Supposedly, every clue we've been staring at for the last year was never a coincidence. And I'll say what nobody else on the timeline is brave enough to say out loud. Drake stans are already crashing out about a project that hasn't even been officially announced yet. Baby, that alone tells you the fear is real. And listen, when I say the fear is real, I don't mean it as a punchline. I mean it as a diagnosis. There is a very specific kind of tremor that ripples through hip-hop Twitter every single time Kendrick Lamar's name resurfaces in a rumor cycle. And if you've been paying attention for the last 10 years, you can practically set your watch by it. First comes the denial. Then comes the deflection. Then comes the desperate pivot to whatever Drake dropped last Thursday. And by the time the actual project arrives, half the doubters are already lining up to pretend they were fans the whole time. We've watched this movie before. We know how it ends. Let me set the ring for you. A single tweet dropped and lit the entire hip-hop internet on fire in under an hour. The claim was short, brutal, and devastatingly effective. Kendrick Lamar is dropping soon. Project is boxing-themed. That's it. That's the whole tweet. And within minutes, the culture went into orbit. Screenshots started flying, fan accounts pulled up receipts, and his name climbed the trending charts like it was 2024 all over again. Now, before anybody rolls their eyes and calls this speculation, catch this. The receipts are actually stacking up in a way that's hard to ignore. He walked into the 2026 Grammys with a full boxing hand wrap on. Not a bandage. Not a fashion accessory. A hand wrap. The kind fighters put on before they lace the gloves. And then, like clockwork, Dave Free posted a close-up of that wrap on his story. Now tell me, you'll really think that's an accident? Here's what nobody's saying loud enough. Kendrick Lamar has been dropping breadcrumbs for a full calendar year, and the industry has been too busy watching Drake release 40 songs about the same one man to notice the trail. He compared himself to Terence Crawford in a bar most fans skipped past. He's been photographed leaving unmarked studios in the middle of the night. His team stopped speaking on his behalf months ago. Silence, in his playbook, is never silence. It's always a countdown. And this time the countdown clock might be pointing at something bigger than anything the culture is emotionally prepared to receive. Let me tell you what really shook the timeline this week. DJ Dahi, one of the most quietly influential producers in modern hip-hop, the man behind Money Trees, the man who has been in the studio with Kendrick since the Damn era, dropped an announcement that broke the entire conversation open. Dahi confirmed a track titled How to Pray, featuring the man of the hour alongside R&B star Amber Mark, releasing August 28th. Let that title sit on your chest for a second. How to Pray, from an artist whose last album turned mortality and salvation into an anthem. From an artist who once compared himself to Jesus, then to a blood soldier, and now, reportedly, to a boxer. Do you see the pattern yet? Because the algorithm sure does. This man doesn't move without purpose. Every single title, every single visual, every single feature, it is all sequenced. And How to Pray is not a throwaway feature. It's a soft launch. It's a rehearsal for whatever comes next. Now let me address the elephant that's been sitting in the corner of the culture. The moment word about a boxing-themed Kendrick Lamar album hit the timeline, a very specific group of people lost their minds. And it wasn't the fans. It was Drake stans. Which is fascinating, because these are the same people who spent 2 entire years telling anybody who would listen that Kendrick was irrelevant, done, cooked, and never coming back. But the second one anonymous tweet mentions him dropping soon, the entire Iceman fanbase turns into a support group. Baby, if he's really irrelevant, why is your timeline shaking? Why are your favorite blogs suddenly awake at 3 in the morning tweeting about a project that doesn't officially exist yet? The math ain't matting. And the culture is watching. Somebody actually had the audacity to say Drake dragged the beef out. Drake, the same artist who literally built the entire Iceman rollout around one man. If you sit down with that album and actually listen, not react, not skip, not clip and share, you'll notice that somewhere between 50 and 60% of the bars are still shadowboxing at a rival who moved on 12 months ago. Meanwhile, Kendrick Lamar has barely spoken about the beef in public since the tour ended. He said what he had to say. He performed it in front of stadiums the size of small cities. He turned a diss record into the highest charting rap moment of an entire decade. And then he went quiet. That's not dragging. That's closing the chapter and locking the door behind you. Let me pull the camera back for a second, because context is everything here. The last time this man dropped an album, the entire genre changed shape. Before 2024, hip-hop's market share had been sliding for years. Streams were down. Radio was moving toward pop and country. The genre was being written off in the same tone Rolling Stone used in the early 90s when they said grunge would never sell. Then he released Like That. Then he released Euphoria. Then he released Not Like Us. And a genre that everybody said was dying became the loudest heartbeat in the entire music industry. He didn't just win a feud. He re-injected the whole culture with adrenaline. So when his name gets attached to a rumor about another album, especially one with a boxing concept, the culture doesn't laugh. The culture leans in. And this is the part that Drake stans genuinely cannot process, no matter how many think pieces they retweet or how many streaming statistics they cherry-pick. Kendrick Lamar isn't measured on the same axis as everybody else in the genre. He doesn't play the release cycle game where an artist drops 8 songs a month to keep the algorithm fed. He plays a different sport entirely. He plays the legacy game. And in the legacy game, the scoreboard doesn't reset every quarter. It compounds. Every project stacks on top of the last. Every era rewrites the meaning of the era before it. And when you're playing that game at that altitude, one-hand rap at a Grammy stage is worth more marketing weight than a competitor's entire album rollout. Now here's where it gets sticky. A different narrative started floating the same week. This idea that Kendrick is somehow ducking interviews. Supposedly he doesn't sit down with the culture. Supposedly he's disconnected. Supposedly the voice of the culture has an obligation to explain himself to every podcast host with a microphone. And I want you to sit with that logic for a second, because it does not survive daylight. He has sat down with Apple Music. He has done Vogue, GQ, and the New York Times. He has visited his old high school in Compton. He hosted pop-up events on his own block. He showed up at TD's Christmas Drive even after he technically left the label. What exactly are we asking this man to do that he hasn't already done? Post duckface selfies? Sit on a couch with somebody whose only qualification is a ring light and a Patreon page? He operates the way Michael Jackson operated. Michael Jackson didn't do the interview circuit either. Michael Jackson let the music speak. When Michael Jackson stepped out, it was a cultural event. And nobody in their right mind stood over Michael Jackson's shoulder asking why he wasn't doing more sit-downs. The same standard should apply here. His art is the interview. His albums are the interview. Every bar is a confession. Every song is a paragraph of autobiography. If you want to know what Kendrick Lamar is thinking, press play. Don't press a booking agent. But moving right along, because the real story is what's coming, not what's already happened. Let's talk about the boxing theme itself, because Drake stans have been trying to gaslight the culture into thinking it makes no sense. Boxing has been baked into hip-hop DNA since the genre was born. LL Cool J made Mama Said Knock You Out, and it became one of the defining tracks of an era. Nas has boxing metaphors woven through half his catalog. Even Drake tried to run a boxing angle a few years back, and nobody blinked. But the second Kendrick raps a hand at the Grammys and lets Dave Free post the close-up, suddenly the concept is confusing? Come on now. That's not confusion. That's fear dressed up as skepticism. Here's the kicker. If this boxing concept is genuinely the direction, then everything Kendrick Lamar has done in the last 12 months takes on new weight. The Grammy hand wrap wasn't fashion. It was a promotional impression. The Terence Crawford bar wasn't a random flex. It was a casting call. The silence between projects wasn't a hiatus. It was a training camp. And the pgLang visual language we've been getting in fragments, the tight framing, the physical stillness, the black and white photography from Dave Free, starts to look like a title fight walkout in slow motion. He doesn't announce projects. He constructs them. He builds a universe around them and then invites the culture inside. So if the boxing theme is real, understand that we are not just getting an album. We are getting a mythology. Now let me put a couple of these dodo bird takes on blast, because some of these tweets are actually comedy. Somebody said, and I quote, "First Kendrick was Jesus, then he was a blood, now he's a boxer. What's next, an astronaut?" Baby, that's not a critique. That's an art history lesson you slept through. David Bowie was Ziggy Stardust. David Bowie was the thin white duke. David Bowie was Aladdin Sane. Nobody accused David Bowie of being confused. They called it genius. Because when an artist uses costume and character to explore themes, that's not identity crisis. That's craft. He isn't losing himself in these characters. He's using them. And every era of his catalog has proven the strategy works. Somebody else pulled up in the replies and said Kendrick disappeared once the Drake hate train stopped working. Excuse me? He finished the highest-grossing rap tour in history 6 months ago, a record he broke twice. He did that with Mr. Morale's song slotted into the set list, the same album these people swore up and down that nobody respected. He sold out stadiums even on the nights SZA wasn't co-headlining. And the same accounts posted videos claiming the seats were empty, only for footage to surface hours later showing entire arenas screaming every word of every song. You can't argue with people whose beliefs were never built on evidence. You just document the receipts and let the algorithm sort them out. Let me pull one more receipt onto the table. When Kendrick Lamar released GNX, he didn't just drop an album. He dropkicked a dozen new artists into the biggest audience of their entire lives. Careers were made off features on that project. Some of those artists went from 0,000 monthly listeners to millions in a week. That's not just a rap album. That's a cultural draft class. And he has been quietly doing this since Good Kid, Mad City. So the next time somebody argues that he doesn't support the culture, ask them to name 3 artists whose careers Drake genuinely made from scratch. Not co-signed, not remixed, but built. I'll wait. And so will the timeline. Sound off in the comments and tell me where you stand, because this is where the fight actually starts. Do you honestly believe Kendrick is dropping a boxing-themed project in the next 12 months? Do you think he has been telegraphing this since the Grammys? Or do you think this is another one of those never-ending rumor cycles that hip-hop Twitter builds an entire month around before quietly moving on? Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Even if this rumor turns out to be smoke, the fact that a single anonymous tweet about this man can send the entire genre into a spiral tells you exactly where he sits in the pecking order. He doesn't have to release anything to dominate the conversation. His silence is louder than most artists' entire discographies. Let me address the interview thing one more time because it keeps circling back. Some people are trying to argue that Kendrick Lamar owes the culture more sit-downs, more podcast appearances, more direct access. And listen, I get where the emotion is coming from. The culture wants to feel close to its icons. But we have to be honest, he has never operated on that frequency, and he was never going to. He is a body of work, not a personality brand. He communicates in verses, not sound bites. And every time somebody insists that he should be showing up on every microphone in the tri-state area, they're basically asking him to stop being himself. That's not accountability. That's a control fantasy. And it doesn't scale. Honestly, y'all, some of these takes feel like they're being written by people who fundamentally do not understand what era of hip-hop we are living in. This isn't the mixtape era where artists had to spam features to stay in the conversation. This isn't the blog era where you needed a XXL freshman cover to get taken seriously. This is the streaming and legacy era, where a single album drop can rewire the entire cultural conversation for 18 months. And Kendrick is one of the maybe 5 artists in the entire genre operating with that kind of blast radius. So when he decides not to sit down with a specific podcast, that's not disrespect. That's calibration. Every appearance he makes has to serve the mythology. Because the mythology is what makes the music matter. There's a comment I keep replaying in my head. Somebody said, if Kendrick really drops this album, the culture will treat him like a villain now. And you know what? Maybe they will. And maybe he leans into it. Because 2024 already showed us he's not afraid of the smoke. He was the underdog for a decade. Now he's the incumbent. And incumbents get scrutinized. That's just the physics of being number one. Drake gets it. J. Cole gets it. He gets it. Every project has to walk out of the tunnel and defend the belt against a stadium full of critics and stands and casuals and haters. That's the price of the throne. And from every indicator we have, this man is more than ready to defend it. Look at the body language. Look at the tour footage. Look at the pgLang visual output over the last 12 months. Everything about his posture right now screams a man who has been sharpening a weapon in private and is about to walk it into a very public arena. Nobody who is planning to retire wraps their hand at the Grammys. Nobody who is scared of the smoke lets their creative director post a close-up shot of that rap on Instagram. These are moves made by an artist who is already 12 steps into the rollout and just hasn't given the rest of us the map yet. Here's the kicker for anybody still on the fence. If, and I mean if, the boxing theme is genuine, the marketing runway is going to be one of the best rollouts we've ever seen. Imagine the visuals. Imagine the short films Dave Free is going to direct. Imagine the music videos with Terence Crawford stepping into frame. Imagine the album cover, bruised knuckles, cornerman towels, the fluorescent hum of an empty gym at 4 in the morning. Imagine Kendrick walking out to the ring in a music video and cutting to a verse mid-round. This is the kind of concept that doesn't just sell albums. It hijacks culture. It becomes a Halloween costume. It becomes a meme. It becomes a moment that lives on the internet for a decade. And he has proven, over and over, that he is one of the few artists left in the mainstream who can actually pull that off. And let me leave you with this one last thought before I let you go. The reason a rumor about Kendrick Lamar hits differently is because he has spent his entire career earning the benefit of the doubt. When he teases something, we lean in, because history has taught us that the payoff will be worth the wait. When he goes silent, we don't assume he's done. We assume he's cooking. When he wraps his hand at an award show, we don't chalk it up to a stylist's choice. We assume there's a chapter attached to it, because he has trained us to. Because every era of his catalog has rewarded that kind of patient attention. Good Kid, Mad City rewarded it. To Pimp a Butterfly rewarded it in ways that still get dissected in college classrooms a decade later. Damn, rewarded it with a Pulitzer nobody in hip-hop had ever won before. Mr. Morale rewarded it by turning Therapy into a rap album subject nobody thought could go platinum. And GNX rewarded it by turning a supposed victory lap into a full-blown genre reset. So when the buzz says there's a boxing-themed project sitting somewhere in a hard drive in Los Angeles, we don't dismiss it. We circle the date. And that trust, that reflex, that is the most valuable currency any artist can build in this generation. Drake would trade 100 features for the level of narrative gravity Kendrick operates in. And that's why the boxing rumor, real or not, is already winning. So drop your verdict in the comment stream below. Tell me if you think he drops before summer, before winter, or before the calendar flips to 2027. Tell me if you think Terence Crawford makes an appearance. Tell me if you think Dave Free's next short film is the album trailer in disguise. And tell me straight up, if Kendrick Lamar walks into that ring and drops the concept album the culture has been waiting for, are the Drake stands going to survive round one? Or is the timeline about to look like a corner between rounds with everybody spitting blood into a bucket? Because from where I'm standing, the fight card is already printed. The tickets are already sold. And he's stepping through the ropes whether anybody's ready or not. If this rumor turns out to be real, remember where you heard it broken down first. And remember which artist bent an entire genre around his silence and made the world watch. He has done it before. He is about to do it again. And when the bell rings, the culture is going to be right here, front row, watching every single punch land. So keep your eyes on the timeline. Keep your ears on the release calendars. Watch what Dave Free posts next. Watch what pgLang teases next. Watch what Terence Crawford drops on his own social feeds, because if there's a cross-promotion coming, it's going to slip out sideways before anybody officially announces anything. And when the pieces snap into place, remember this moment. The moment before the bell, the moment before the culture flipped upside down all over again. Because when this album drops, whether it's boxing-themed or something even wilder that we haven't decoded yet, the entire genre is going to have to answer for what it said during the silence. And the silence is almost over. Trust me on that one.